That sucked. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, there's a lot of things I could be referring to, so I don't blame you. I'm talking about the 2021 Chicago Bears season. Bears finished with a 6-11 record, which is 2 games worse than I had them at. I had them at 8-9. And Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, the 2 longtime head coach and general manager of the team, are fired. Now, I'm going to talk about who I want to be the head coach in this video, or guys that I think could be good, but overall I am not going to give a top 5 list definitively until probably tomorrow. Also, I have a gag reel for this season's funniest moments coming out, just like I did last year. Just so we can kind of look at last season in a funny way, because it wasn't funny at all. It sucked. And I really just want to talk about ownership and kind of how I felt about the second half of the season. So I stopped after the Buccaneers game doing the weekly reviews and doing videos on YouTube in general. I have been doing videos on TikTok way more frequently. And I think it's easy to say why this team didn't figure its crap out quicker. Frequent turnover at the quarterback position doesn't help. Having 3 starting quarterbacks in a season isn't good. The inconsistency of the defense never helped. You didn't know if you were going to get the defense that gives up 33 points to a hobbled Jimmy Garoppolo or 29 points to one of the worst offenses in the league in Pittsburgh, or is going to hold Tyler Huntley to 9 points before the final drive of the game. And it's really wild to think about that if the 3 games we blew it on the final drive, 49ers, Steelers, and Ravens all win our way, we'd be looking at a wild card spot right now, and we'd probably have another year of Nagy and Pace. But kind of luckily for us, they blew it, and now we actually get a fresh start. Overall, I think Matt Nagy showed his worst coaching towards the end of the year. He never built specific game plans that looked cohesive for for Dalton or for Fields. I think his actual best game plan, if he even made the game plans, was for Foles in Seattle. The defense, I think you saw a ton of young guys step up, and you saw a ton of veterans kind of get disappointing. Robert Quinn turned out to be better than I ever thought he was going to be. I guess thank goodness for him, but I'm going to be out on the record absolutely thinking that I don't even think he gets 10 sacks next season, because I don't think you can. I think at the age he's at, 1, he's going to be more injury prone, and 2, he's just that is so hard to repeat. Teams are going to know what your tendencies are now, especially in this defense, if he's even on the team next year. There's guys who have so many free agents, just running through them. James Daniels, Bilal Nichols, Akeem Hicks, Andy Dalton. Guys like Sam Mustipher and Alex Bars, who have been backups or staples of the team for a few years now. Marquise Goodwin, Allen Robinson, Alec Ogletree, Tashawn Gibson, Deion Bush, Artie Burns. So there's a whole lot of free agents who played significant minutes on this team this year. And there's a ton of guys who can get cut. Danny Trevathan, Eddie Goldman. Trying to think of guys who can get cut and we save money. Jimmy Graham. That you can cut and get even more money. And we'll probably have around $55 million in cap space heading into the offseason. And going through the final second half of the season, what was our biggest problems in terms of personnel? I would say wide receiver. I think our actual wide receiver depth was fine. I just think there wasn't a standout guy outside of Darnell Mooney. And when I say Darnell Mooney's a standout player, I think on a scale of wide receiver, he's like a 6.5 out of 10. If Devontae Adams is 10 out of 10, Darnell Mooney is 6.5 out of 10. He doesn't do any of the same stuff that Devontae Adams does well, and yet he's still good. That's kind of why it's difficult to evaluate a wide receiver. So I'm going to have to say I was impressed with Darnell Mooney, but he also was getting the volume where he should have been a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he developed a drop problem that he didn't have last year. And I think even worse was guys that I expected way more out of before the season, and maybe I shouldn't have done these expectations, but Marquise Goodwin, Damiere Byrd severely disappointed me. Jakeem Grant, who we just brought along even though we had Daz Newsome on the roster. Daz Newsome didn't do anything. And then Allen Robinson's probably the biggest disappointment in recent Bears memory. Talk about a letdown. Good God. Just overall, need to overhaul the receiver core. Get a guy like Mike Williams or hell, Devontae Adams if you can afford him, if he is willing to show up. I was going to say Tim Patrick, maybe Cortland Sutton, but they both got re-signed by Denver. So not a lot of options. The cornerback room needs a whole ton of depth. Thomas Graham, I still don't think he's good enough to be a full 17-game starter. I think you saw a ton of flashes out of guys like Kindle Vildor and Duke Shelley with their rookie seasons. And so now you're seeing flashes out of Thomas Graham. And I don't want people to get their hopes up that he's going to be some savior. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be about what Duke Shelley is. And Shelley and Vildor will probably be on the roster to start 2022. But I think they need to upgrade, whether that's through the draft and whether that is through free agency. I have no idea. Whether that's getting a guy like Stephon Gilmore or Patrick Peterson. I don't know. I don't think that's the direction this team is going in. And then the final need that I think really needs to be addressed is interior offensive line. I think we have our tackles of the future in Jenkins and Borum. And I think you have Whitehair for at least one more year before his contract's expendable. So you need to get a center. Guys like Ryan Jensen are going to be available. And then you need to get a guard, and I think that'll be the biggest draft need. Overall, I think our offensive line was better than some people give it credit for. I don't think it was a bottom 10 unit in football. I still think it's bad, needs to be improved. But I would say wide receiver, corner, and interior offensive line are where we need to improve this team. Now, coaching. I'm going to move on to it. I don't really know much of the GM candidates. I am hoping for the guy from Indianapolis who they said that they were going to interview. I think he would be a solid option. I like how Indianapolis has built their teams. Offensive line and defense, which has always kind of been when Chicago is successful. It's kind of their MO, so that doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't mind the dude from the Saints either, even though we just fired a dude who was hired from the Saints. So probably not the smartest idea there. And then in terms of coaching, it kind of is frustrating because basically the McCaskies announced that they have the potential of hiring a head coach before a GM, which means the GM isn't going to pick the head coach. I don't think that's something that some people have realized. The GM is not going to pick the head coach unless he's hired super early. And the head coaches that I'm looking at, Brian Leftwich is my number 1. Nathaniel Hackett is my number 2. Harbaugh, Jim is my number 3. And then my number 4, super unrealistic one, is Ryan Day. I don't even think he'll leave. That's why he's number 4. I don't want a guy like Kellen Moore. And I don't really want Eric Bieniemy or Brian DeBoer because I think they're frauds. You could also just do the Denver Broncos strategy of interviewing every single possible head coaching candidate. Guys like Leslie Frazier, Doug Peterson, whatever. I'm not going to judge the coach until I actually see them do their coaching. So I won't be angry as soon as they hire a guy. But there's guys that I think that would be the best for the team, and that's Leftwich, Hackett, or Harbaugh. Because I think Harbaugh can establish a great staff. Speaking of staff, I do think Sean Desai should stay. I've always been a defender of his, and I think given how beat up the secondary was, and given how guys had to rotate in and out of the defensive line consistently, I think Sean Desai should stay. I think he did a pretty good job. And that being said, that's pretty much my season in review. Going into the offseason, next 2 days will probably be the gag reel video or the funniest moments video, and then will probably be my top 5 head coaching hires. Hopefully they don't hire someone in between me making that video and them hiring someone. So I guess I'll see you guys all then. Videos coming out the next few days. I'm going to be back for the off season, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace out. See y'all.